TV results.
Well, there you go.
I'm Ilana Razbash, and this is Radio Architecture.
Good evening from beautiful Bunurong country. We are broadcasting to you live on Radio Karam from the unceded lands of the Eastern Kulin Nation. It's a stunning night out here in the Karam. We've even got the studio windows open. We can hear some of the birds out in the wetlands of the ancient Edithvale Seaford wetlands, the ancient Karam swamp, just behind us right here where we are broadcasting to you from. As always, if you'd like to join the conversation, please text us on the studio line on 0493 213 831. My guest and conversation partner this evening is Amal Iharkachen. Her journey exemplifies resilience and the empowerment of others. Her guiding principle is to lead with kindness, always seeking the silver lining in any situation. She often reflects, I want to be for others who I needed when I was younger. As an architect, she made the bold move at 23 years old, leaving her hometown in Belgium to venture to Dubai, despite having no experience and not speaking a word of English. Over the next 10 years, she thrived in the hotel development sector throughout the MEA region, where she developed over 25 hotels. Her next leap brought her to Melbourne, where she embraced a new challenge, this time as a project manager in the construction industry. It's been an interesting chapter in her life, to say the least. Today, Amal leads her project management practice, Rise PM, where she emphasizes the importance of human connections and relationships. Her diverse hands-on experience across the globe, taking on various roles, have profoundly shaped her approach to managing projects and teams. Having once been in her client's shoes, she brings a unique empathy and insight to her work. Amal is also an advocate for multiple communities. As a queer working mother of colour, she proudly champions the importance of inclusion and representation because, as she says with a smile, if it's not a thing, let's make it a thing. Welcome to the program. Amal, let's make it a thing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We will make it a thing. Don't worry.
Pleasure to have you in the studio tonight. And someone who's travelled so much, who's seen so much of the world, such an interesting perspective. I want to go back to how that journey all started and ask, what's your earliest memory of a building or place?
All right. Earliest memory was probably in Belgium, obviously, where I'm from. I remember being with my father and telling him, Dad, and I was young, so probably early secondary. So I was asking him, I want to get out of here. That was a real statement because I love Belgium, born and raised there, love it. I lived in a different, so we all had different pockets and communities over there because there was a big wave of immigration, and my parents were from that wave as well. So they came from Morocco, and we were in that neighborhood surrounded by the same culture and the same people, etc. And I was like, but obviously it was not a very wealthy neighborhood. So early on, I just wanted to break free, to if I can say it this way. But
was this in Brussels?
In Brussels, yes. So I've asked my dad, what can I do to just get out and dream bigger? I just want to do more and do bigger things. So he told me, well, under your bed, and that's a true story. He told me, under your bed, you have this box with these old radios and old clocks. And we're talking, I'm a 1980 baby. Yeah. So we're talking about a long time ago. And I used to spend my weekends opening them up. And he told me, well, you always have been very crafty. I think you should do something about this and you should do something with this. So in my high school at that time, that there was a section where we used to study plastic art and interior design. But I was in social science at the time. I was all about, I want to save people. I want to make the world a better place, etc., etc. So I've always had that thing in me. And then my dad is the one who just played, with his magical wand and said, well, you want to help people, you have that social component into you, and you are very crafty and you're curious. So how about you mix them both? And went to the school, spoke to them, moved me into plastic arts and interior design when I was 13 years old. And from there, studied interior design. Then in uni, I studied architecture and got my master's. And then that's when I took off. But
I want to ask
Belgium,
after that,
yeah.
was it a separate stream? So we were already as a school child basically sorted into humanities and more of an art practice?
So actually in how it is in Belgium, high school is divided by two. So you have the 3 first years where everyone is pretty much studying the same thing. And then you have the 3 last years where you actually have to choose, and it's also based on your grade. So you have Latin, science, or math, or you have plastic arts and interior design. So it's by choice essentially. So that's when. So I spoke to him when I was on my 3rd year, and then I started the first cycle there in plastic art and interior design. It was very, very, very crafty. I remember that's when we started working with wood and building shelves. And my mom actually, up until today, whenever I go back home, I found that shelf, the spice where she put all the spices. It's a shelf that I built when I was in that school.
She still got it.
Kid. Yeah, she still has it. Yeah. So I was good. I mean, it's still standing. I mean, how many years later? 30 years?
How was your education in Belgium? I'm actually really loving reminiscing because I studied on exchange, but in the Flemish part at St. Lucas in Ghent, and you were in the French-speaking part.
I was actually, so I was in Brussels. Funny you said that. Things have changed. So Belgium, very small country, just to give context to everyone. Very small country where we speak so many languages and they're all mandatory and no one, all these regions are not necessarily getting along. So you have the north that speaks Flemish and then you have the south, so Wallonia, that speaks French. But then you have Brussels, that beautiful little dot in the middle where we have to speak both languages. So at the time when I grew up, French was the predominant language. But visiting my family since 20 years now, constantly I've been seeing the shift. So now Flemish is back into power in Brussels. So I would not be able to survive a job, I think, now in Brussels because I cannot speak Dutch anymore.
Wow.
The day I learned English, my whole Flemish was gone because it's so similar. And now I'm not able to make the difference anymore. So so in Brussels, it's been very, very, very multicultural as well. So I think we speak French, Dutch. There's also German. German is also one of the national languages. I've never ventured there, and I was very happy that my school did not necessarily force us to speak those languages. But now my siblings and nieces, nephews are all bilingual, so they speak French and Flemish at the same level equally. I respect that a lot. So.
I want to ask about Belgium, your memories of Brussels and the city of art. My memories are of Art Nouveau architecture, of art, René Magritte.
Yes. So Brussels, you have to go. Let's put it this way. So everybody goes for the same reasons. We know that there's a bit of there's good food and drinks and chocolate and all of that. But Belgium is known for its architecture, and we do have some very important architects that came from there. So my university was a merger between the ULB, which is the Freedom University of Brussels, and a mix with Victor Horta. So my campus was called Victor Horta at the time, which is a very famous architect. He kind of invented a few things, which is, like you've mentioned, the Art Nouveau. The way I summarize Art Nouveau is it looks like a cake with whipped cream. It's all very soft edges, and you have this vegetation made out of steel and iron, and it's just so pretty. So he brought in, so this Art Deco is bringing that metal finishes into the design, into the houses, and that glass as well, colored glass. And you have, Brussels currently is doing really well in restoring all these buildings, and you have plenty of extremely talented architects that are actually coming out from Belgium. And obviously the exchange student programs are great because you have Holland as well. I love Holland. If I ever live in Europe, I probably would live in Rotterdam because of its architecture.
I found Rotterdam to be so much like Melbourne, so hip and so cool.
Very, very vibrant. You walk in a street in the day, you return to the same street at night, it looks completely different because of the light. It makes the building look completely different. It's very, very, very interesting in terms of architecture. So I know maybe not a lot of people know about Brussels, but it's worth going to just have a look at the architecture and go around. Europe is so small. You go to Barcelona, you say everything that Gaudi is doing there. You go to Holland, see what the other Dutch architects have been doing. But you spend more time in Brussels for sure.
Favorite place in Europe?
Ooh, favorite place in Europe. Well, I would say my dining table because my mom cooks amazingly well and I miss it so much. But I would say Barcelona. Barcelona. There's something extremely special about Barcelona. As a student, we used to, so architecture student, you know, we like to be free and we like to go see things with our own eyes. So we used to go, I had a group of friends, we used to go every single year. At the end of the year, we would just book a flight with Ryanair because it was so cheap. And we just flew to Barcelona and we spent a week and then we come back to Brussels and then work the whole summer. So to just gather enough money to pay our studies again the next year. But yeah, Barcelona, the Sagrada Familia, the whole architecture there is extremely special.
I'm also the biggest Gaudi fan myself. It's almost a cliche that you begin with Gaudi as that core inspiration, and then you will forever stay with Gaudi or return to Gaudi.
That's exactly right.
Next stop for you is Dubai.
Yes.
How did you get that idea?
So, I'm a bit, I'm just crazy.
Free-spirited.
That's exactly, yeah, okay, let's put it this way. It's better. Yeah, definitely free-spirited. But, just before we jump there, because there will be a loop at the end, actually. In Brussels, the first project I've ever done as a kid was, they asked me when I was still in school, so that interior design, right? They told me you need to inspire your project from an architect. So I was like, okay, let me start to make some research. We didn't have computers. I'm talking about library, going through books. I fell in love with the work of Norman Foster. I will just leave it there. Norman Foster. Remember the name. Finished my studies, graduated, very excited. So just 1 year before I finished my master's, somebody actually told me about a place called UAE and Dubai. And I was like, where is that? Like, it's so far away. But yeah, I've never traveled that far. I was just around Europe, essentially. The further I went, maybe was Europe and Morocco in summer and then back. So I was like, I'll give it a go. So I visited Dubai for a couple of weeks, came back, and I told my parents, and they didn't take me seriously. I came back, I was like, I'll finish my studies next year, and I think I'm heading there. And they're like, yeah, sure. They did not believe I was going to do it. And by the way, on the 12th of October, it's going to be, I moved there, 12th of October, 2005. So it's going to be 9 years. 19 years, my God, 19. That does not make me young. I need to. So, moved to Dubai, graduated, booked a one-way flight ticket. During dinner on the 11th of October, just while eating, I just put my ticket, put it on the table, and I continue eating. And my mom then realized that I was actually really leaving. And they were terrified. They were mortified at the idea of me living so far away in a country. Let's face it, the culture is different. All I've known is Belgium, and I don't speak the language. I don't understand even entirely how things work there. And so I don't speak English. I don't have a day of experience as an architect. I don't have necessarily a lot of money. So my mom was a housewife, so she was looking after her 4 children. My dad was a bus driver. So that just paints to you the portrait. So we're not talking about someone who has access to a phone call and say, Dad, just can you please wire me some money so I can rent an apartment? No, it was me figuring it out once I get there. So that's me. That's how I am. So I just went and I was like, I'll find a job.
That was Dubai in the boom era,
It
right?
was.
Construction was crazy.
It was.
It was almost this promised paradise for architects.
Correct.
They could come work for a few years and go home with a mortgage payment.
That's, that's it. So,
Those were the myths and stories.
This is true. So at the time, they were really welcoming anyone that comes with a level of education, especially from Europe or from the US or Canada and Australia. And so that's when we called it the El Dorado period. So there was not much built, and the country is very young. I think the country now is probably less than 45 years old. So I'm talking about making a move there 20 years ago. So it was fairly young. That's why there were plenty of opportunities. I got my first job. So I stayed with the sister of someone I knew in Brussels who was living in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi, Brussels is CBD ascendant. So we're not talking about big distance. Stayed in her house, slept on her couch for a week and borrowed her car, went to Dubai. I went to World Trade Center in Dubai thinking I was, I don't know, I thought it was just normal. Now that I think back, I'm like, okay, maybe I should have booked an appointment. So I just rocked up with I prepared that list of companies in Dubai that have, that are architect firms technically with their address and floor levels and name of the CEO. So I made this little booklet. So I was like, okay. Parked my car, went in, and because I don't speak English, the security even let me through. I was talking pretty much, if you picture Tarzan speaking in English, that was my level of English. So I was like, me, architect, up 33, level 33, up there. So security, so confused, just opens the doors. They're like, okay, I don't know, she probably has a meeting or an appointment with someone. So they let me in.
The title of architect was a golden ticket back then.
It was a bit of a status as well, and they put it on your visa. So because you're on working visas there, they actually write your job title. So, and yes, being an architect, it was really seen as high. It is. We are highly educated. It is tough. It is a long journey, but it gives you that status. So, anyways, went up, got to the office, and I'm so thankful from my first employer. I was lucky enough to actually get to that office the day where the CEO was present, and he's not always present. So I was just very lucky, and no one can understand what I'm talking about. So even the receptionist was like, I don't know. Okay, fine. I'll let you meet him. Come. Everybody thought I had a meeting. And I thought it was normal, by the way. Till then, I was like, I'm thinking it's totally normal to approach life like this, right? So I'm sitting in front of him and he could speak a little bit of French, just a little bit, enough to understand me. And he just laughed and laughed and laughed. And he said, he did give me a quick job. He told me, can you draw me 2 concepts for a bank? So he told me, let's say you have to design a bank. Here are 2 pieces of paper, blank paper. Can you draw a concept?
How do you even sit a test like that? That seems ridiculous in the modern age.
Today, yes. But back then it was because I was like, I'm from the people who draw still up until today. I spend a lot of time drawing. But he just wanted to test to make sure that I'm actually not lying. Because probably when he saw how I could draw a few things, even in 3D, he knew that I actually was an architect. The guy doesn't know me. He has not heard about me. There was no LinkedIn in the past, so it's not as if he can quickly do a search and find me. Yeah. He has no idea if I'm really an architect. He actually gave me a job on the spot, telling me, I'm going to give you a job just because of your courage. And I was like, okay, that's great. For me, it was totally normal, but now that I think about
it was your first attempt too.
First job in. So I've worked there for some time, and then I moved to a French company, which was probably for me a little bit more comfortable, so I could really learn English more comfortably, and I could take my time. So worked for a French firm, and then I moved on to the. So I worked as an architect for a very short amount of time, and then I moved to the development side of things, the client side. So, which was an interesting switch for me. I constantly think that even as an architect, when I was a student, for me, it was all about craziness and doing good things for our community. So how can we serve better? And when I started working, I realized that we wanted to do beautiful things, but probably as directed by my employers at the time. It was make it pretty, but not always functional, not always generating profits for certain people. At the end of the day, client is king. So if the person tells us this is what we need, this is what we want, that's what we should be doing. And I remember what was the switch for me. We did this by the way, to all the architects out there. I feel you. I hear you. We're all the same. We all studied very long days, long nights, long months and hours and years, believing that this will break the bank. We will have such an easy life, but actually it keeps on getting harder and harder. We do work very long hours. So everyone out there who is not an architect, please make sure that you know that these architects are working really hard. And when you think that you're changing a little things, one line, one wall, it means updating a series of drawings. There's a lot of things that happen in the background that people are not necessarily aware of it. And I was on that side, and I remember doing some design, having my employer saying, change a few things just before the meeting. So spent my weekend working, stressed out, frustrated, obviously, as many can actually identify with this, can relate to this. Go to the meeting. I attend the meeting. I'm super excited. I'm part of the conversation. Yay, I'm growing. I'm learning. I can see now the people who are actually spending the money. And I'm taking notes because I'm interested, right? I want to do better. I'm listening to the client, taking the notes. I know exactly what needs to change, what needs to happen. Go back to the office and I'm like, I have a plan, manager. I do have a plan. I know how I'm going to tackle this. Bang, bang, bang. And the answer was, no, we will not do that. We will do this. We will just make it a little bit bigger. We'll just modify. So, and that's when you're young and it's your first, second job, you kind of feel that you have to do whatever you're told. You don't necessarily think or feel that you have enough confidence or you have enough
agency.
To question the status quo. And that's where I was like probably telling myself, well, it's still me though. It's me. So I'm going back to who I am and I'm going to say, actually, I disagree respectfully, but I disagree. This is not what that person wanted. So that's really when I made the decision to not work.
That was the
shift for me. Yeah.
Yeah, the light bulb moment.
It was because I see that client as if it was my father's money. I always repeat that. And this is what always crosses my mind because my father is a hard worker person. And I'm just picturing someone using his money and his sweat just not listening to what he needs. And that can cost a lot. That can really impact him or any other person. So that's how I see it. And that's why it hit me a little bit differently. I was like, well, if that was my father or my parent, I wouldn't want someone to just play with their money. And that's when I decided to move. And the universe also just directed me. Things just happen in the right time. You question yourself and then you get a bit of a hint. Something happens. You know what they say? A door closes, a bigger one opens. And the way I like to see it, if there's no doors, it's okay. I will go in from the window. But I'm getting in if I want to get in. It's happening. We need to make it work. So I moved to the developer side.
Did you miss architecture?
No. Not as an architect, no, because it's I'm literally picturing myself on my desk again, there working day and night and weekends, and I feel it's very underrated, the effort that we put together, that we put forward as architects. It's really underrated, and especially even in today's days, I feel it is more and more, which is why, as a project manager now, I do respect what the architect and what every expert can bring to the table. And I think they need to know how valued they are. No one is there to tell them how to do their job. It takes many, many years to become an architect. So we are expert in a specific field. Just let us be. Just help direct a few things.
Why do you think it's so hard for architects to actually express that and communicate that they are experts, that do have knowledge, but also to be taken seriously in that?
Today, everything is about consumer. It's about making a lot of money quick. I don't think there's appreciation anymore. I don't think people take their time. I really don't think people pause to take their time to even acknowledge the people in the rooms. I don't think this happens anymore. I feel that everything is at a fast pace. And probably the architects are not voicing it because you do have a lot of architects in the market. You have a lot of people. It's grown as much as in the past we didn't have as many architects, and maybe this is what made us so interesting, and that's why it made my generation be super keen on being an architect, because it's so special and we invent things and we innovate things.
It's a huge privilege.
It is. And I really feel that, it's just underrated and it's misunderstood. And the way maybe I want to say we, because I will always be an architect at heart. I will always be an architect at heart. Even though now I wear a different hat, but I do respect the architect because I was them once upon a time. Just like you said earlier, I was my client once upon a time as a developer, but then I was also the architect once upon a time. So just want to make sure that I would love that more project managers and more developers and more clients, if they're listening, I would hope that they would really just appreciate and just communicate. Nobody's saying you have to spend more millions. Nobody tells you need to spend more money. Sorry, but it's how you articulate that. What is the goal? What are you really after? A good architect will listen. You have to be a good listener.
Yeah.
It's you literally listen a vision. You listen to a vision and you help them put it together.
You have to set aside your ego in that process.
Oh, look, there should be no ego in love, in work, in life. I really think ego is just not something that should have any place anywhere. Yeah, there's no ego.
What was it like being a developer? People don't often talk about that. I feel like we get access to a lot of conversations with people moving builder side and being in other places in the construction industry. But that moment working with developers, what's actually going through their heads? What are their key objectives? And it's got to be more than just making money.
It is more than making just money. And based on my experience, at least, I don't want to speak on behalf of all the developers. And it was in Dubai, in UAE, so it was a different region as well. It was so developed. Look, there is a big component where you say the mindset is we spend $1 to generate $10 or $100. So it is a business at the end of the day, and everybody has to be very clear on that. But then working as a developer is where you have a hand everywhere. So you understand how things work. You understand where you want to reach. What is the goal? What is the end goal? So you want functionality. And I cannot say it more. It's all about functionality. It has to work. There's no wasted space. Everything has to be utilized, and based on the budget they have access to specific materials or level of elite designers, etc., etc. But I would say developers are pretty much after functionality. What is needed right now? So just like now, you look at the market. There's a problem in the commercial space in the city because a lot of companies need to reduce their footprint. Why? Because not all the employees want to work from the office anymore. So, but then how do they still get value for money? And they want to make sure that they're not paying crazy rent for new facilities. And the developer, who will be the landlord, will often say, well, let us give them what they need. What do you need right now? What do you need? Let us make it functional for you. We know that you just have to cater for a certain amount of staff and you need to have an open space, or the brief comes from the developer, and everybody really has to be on board, I think, with that. Unfortunately, it is the game at the end of the day. So.
What was the biggest lesson for you during that period of change, taking off the architect hat?
Okay, so there was someone. There's always, a great person. I've always had, everywhere I was, everywhere I worked, I've always had that person that whether taught me things with love or with less love. But there's always something that I've learned from every single person I worked with. So wonderful engineer who, engineers are very realistic. And all about functionality, and they question everything, and they know everything, right? They know a lot. So I have a massive respect for them. So I was in an office. So I had one small office, and we had our desks face to face. I don't even think we had I think we had a computer at the time, or not even. It was early 2000s, right? So we were still reviewing drawings by hand. So I was working for a hotel developer, and my colleague was an MEP, so mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer. That's how we call it there, MEP. And he was looking after everything related to engineering, and I was looking at services, and I was looking after everything related to design, architecture, and ID. And he was telling me, there's a reason why every single sentence is mentioned in our guidelines. Because the hotel guidelines are massive when you work within the technical team. So I was an in-house design manager for the hotel developer. So I have to study all those guidelines if it's a business hotel. this is the guideline. If it's a 5-star, 4-star, 3 stars, this is the guideline.
And
If
this
it's
was
a
the
resort,
developers' in-house guideline.
of course.
Because they were building so much. It was
So-
such a boom time.
We're developers, we're operators as well. So landlords, sometimes part landlords, sometimes would be the operator only. So, sorry. So everything has to make sense, and everything that has a price tag on it, we need to make sure that we can demonstrate that we will generate 3 times or 10 times more.
Those are the
And-
profit margins, huh?
Even I would say even more. It's a hotel. You're selling a service. So
Yeah.
clean rooms and beautiful locations, obviously. And the developments were not just in the UAE, so it was across the whole region. So it was Africa and Middle East, and the GCC, so the Gulf countries as well. So it was very interesting to build for example, to develop a 5-star resort in Abu Dhabi, for example, and at the same time having a 5-star resort in Istanbul, for example, in Turkey. They're very different guidelines, different needs, because these countries, these cultures and communities are different. So we have different guidelines for all these different regions. Maybe for some people, maybe everybody is the same, but actually people are not the same. The culture, for example, in Australia is not the same as New Zealand.
Yeah.
Just like you would look at Asia, it's very different. Thailand is not China, it's not Japan. All these countries are very different, fundamentally different. So it was what I loved, and what really shaped me probably the most was working on these projects. Great opportunities because you work with top-notch elite designers, and you would have those amazing architecture firms, amazing engineering firms, and builders as well, coming from all around the world. And everybody is adaptable, so we all cater. So so the hotel now is it's in Nigeria. This is the culture. This one is now in Algeria. This is the culture. So that's how the design should be. This is the type of product we're selling and we want to put forward, because you're catering for guests. It's a hotel. What is a hotel? It's home. It's a home away from home. You need to open your door, your room, and that's when you feel good. And what is feeling good for someone in Turkey, for someone in Kuwait, for someone in even in Morocco? What is that good feeling? So it was I cannot even put a word on it. It was extremely enriching. That these 10 years that I spent there taught me so much, not only work-wise as that dynamic between being an architect or being a developer, being a landlord. It's not just that. It's just on a human being level. That's what I think really changed me. I think if I would have moved from Brussels to Australia, to Melbourne, I wouldn't be the same person I am today. I don't think I would be.
Of course not. Every
No.
experience enriches you, and you never know where that journey will take you,
It is,
or
yeah.
how that will unfold. Tell me, project management. How did that come up?
Again, so
Another shift.
I'm a connector. So I love people, right? And I think this was just the natural shift for me. So moving to, sorry, I'm going to jump again on that story. So Norman Foster, right?
I was wondering when he might come back.
I hope he's not listening. He might, you don't know.
Norman, if you're listening, text us. Sir Norman.
So yes, it's Lord, I think. Yeah, Lord. I don't know. Look, he's got many titles, but yeah, highly respected. Working in my last role in UAE before moving to Australia, I have this. There is a massive. I think it was a few years before I moved. Sorry, I think it was in 2012. You have this exhibition and conference in Abu Dhabi, in Saadiyat Island, where you have the Louvre that has been built. So you have all these important buildings next to each other. And again, if I'm telling the size of Saadiyat Island, just to give you a bit of context, it might be just one suburb. Like it would be just everything is next to each other. So you have Zaha Hadid and Franco Gehry, Jean Nouvel, and you had, I think it was Tadeu Ando and Norman Foster. So all of them built buildings, few buildings next to each other, and all of them were in a room in Abu Dhabi, very small room, only 100 people sit in, and they will have a chat. I'm talking about these people. Anyone
Opal Star Architects.
they are all in one room in Abu Dhabi, just a few kilometers away from my desk. And I went to my manager, who's so lovely, and I hope he listens. I hope he hears me now. His name is Naji. So I went to him and I told him, well, you know this architect, right? I know you also are a recycled architect.
Recycled architect.
Yeah. And that's how we call ourselves. And I told him, look, this is what's happening. I need to go. I'm not going to work. I cannot work. It's not going to happen. I'm leaving. Mind you, I'm talking
Need to meet your heroes.
It's happening. It's happening. You know, you lose your job. You lose your visa. You leave the country. It's not a small thing to just walk to your manager's office and say, I need to go today, and this is it. I went, so he let me go. He's like, go live your dream. Follow your dream. Beautiful man. So I went there and I stood in, because it's first in, best served. So you don't pay any ticket or anything. You just have to wait. When the door opens, the first 100 people come in and they sit, and this is it. They close the door, right? So I was like in the front, probably the fifth person.
Why only 100 people?
Because that's how they wanted to keep it.
Okay.
They actually did different conferences and they had different conversations in different sides, but that specific room was going to have the 5 of them for 1 hour. I had to be in this room. You know me now a little bit, right?
Yes.
I had to be in this room.
The closed doors, you opened a window, you ran straight into it.
That's exactly right. So that was the window. So, and I queued for hours and hours and hours and hours. And while I'm waiting, so I was probably the 4th or 5th.
Okay.
I see Norman Foster passing next to me, literally, arm distance. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot lose my turn. Oh my God, I need to talk to him. I need to tell him that when I was a kid, I picked his building, which was the HSBC building. I picked his building for my first project ever when I was 13 years old. And then I'm like, but there were so many people. I was like, if I leave, I'll lose my place in the queue. So I've asked the guy behind me. I was like, I beg you. I actually beg you. He's like, just go. That's fine. So I went and I tapped on his shoulder. Norman Foster. I was like, I need to speak to you. And he actually brought me in and we had a short coffee together. And we sat and I told him the story of my life. He told me, tell me about you. So he actually told me that he has many siblings. And he also came from a family that didn't have any hope of him becoming such a famous architect or even making it as an architect. So we had this fantastic, probably half an hour.
Wow.
I gave my phone to someone, or maybe it was a camera. I have a lot of pictures, so someone took all these pictures. And to tell you how I do things a little bit differently, right? I remember I actually took a copy of my degree with me to that event. So he signed it for me. Yeah, signed it for me. So anyways, butterflies, super excited, sending me back to memory lane to when I was in Belgium as a kid. And even when I graduated from my master's, they said, what do you want to do next? I was like, I'm going to Dubai. They're like, but what about your dream to maybe work with Norman Foster? I was like, I don't know. It's okay. The universe will fix it for me. And the universe did. So went, attended the conversation. It was fantastic. Zaha didn't show up, by the way, but everybody else was there. And when we finished, I screamed in French to Jean Nouvel, can you sign my degree in French? And he turned laughing, saying, who just said that? I was like, c'est moi, it's me. Yeah. And I have a picture of him. He actually signed my degree. He said, this is the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So he also signed my contract. I went home feeling like I was a rock star. I was Michael Jackson at the time. That's what I felt. So very, very, very fulfilling. So
what was Norman Foster like? I want to pause on that. What was it like to have a conversation with him?
He's very human. He's very humble. And he talked to me about his family. I think that breaks the ice very fast because I could speak English at the time, by the way, slightly better, obviously. And I told him, I'm in shock that I'm meeting you. I'm a huge fan. And he's like, and for him it was, but why? Why? I'm just an architect. Why? Tell me why. And I was like, because I don't, and this is how I related. And it's funny because I was so intimidated and it was a bit of a roller coaster of emotion when I met him. And I just spoke to him about my upbringing. So it was not necessarily design. I was like, because I come from a family that we didn't have money. I was not born in a family of doctors and lawyers and architects and politicians. This is not my life. So I come from a very different life. And I was like, you don't realize how this is so important to me. And he's telling me, what do you mean I don't realize? Maybe I do, actually. tell me your story. So I was like, yeah, well, I come from a family, you know, my father was a bus driver. He's like, well, let me tell you about my family. I think he had 10 or 11 siblings. There were many siblings. They were a working class. So we related there. And I was like, oh my God. So he is the person I needed when I was younger. Just like I want to be the person that I needed when I was younger. I realized that he's just normal. So since he made it to that level of notoriety, but his design are just excellent and he's extremely respected. Everyone can do that. So this is for me the message. Everyone can do it. He did it. Why not me? Why not you? Why not anybody else? Why not the 15-year-old or 20-year-old person who's listening? We can all do whatever we want to do. We can all achieve things we want to do. We might not have the tools. Nobody has the tools for everything. But I like to think, you know, and probably the big 3 steps I did in my life were also moving to Dubai, moving to Australia, and now opening my business goes with the same rule. I plan 50%. I cannot control everything. I can control 50%. And the rest, I'm just going to wing it. I'll just face on every challenge that comes, every lesson, actually. So it's either a win or it's a lesson. It's nothing else.
Yeah.
And he did it. And he was so humbling because this is where he used to, and I remember that very well. He was telling me, but why are you so impressed? Like, it's okay. Look at you now. Look at you now. He asked me, what do you do now? It's like, well, I was in Brussels and then I got my master's with distinction, mind you. I was like, and then I moved to Dubai. And he's like, well, and what do you do now? I was like, I develop hotels. I'm a design director and I travel. And it's the thing. He's like, there you go. There you go. You're doing it yourself. And I think, again, we all are doing it ourselves. We just need to be able to stop, pause, looking in front of the mirror, and give ourselves a tap in the back, in the shoulder.
Yeah.
I really think we're all achieving something. Everybody is. Everybody is. So, Norman Foster.
Amazing story.
What a moment.
I've got goosebumps.
Oh, I do have them.
There's
a moment.
quiet moments with people that are perceived to be star architects and impenetrable and inaccessible, and that's a really, really important memory.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll find the photo for us and we can share it on our Instagram.
I will. I have it.
And Jean Nouvel and Norman Foster's autograph.
You see, Jean Nouvel was laughing on it. He was literally like just laughing while signing. He's like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. He was meant to leave. So the security is just pushing him to leave. And he's like, who just said that? Who said, because in French. So I was like, hello. C'est moi.
We'll post that photo on Instagram. Let's see how far it could travel through the magic of socials. But you haven't told us.
Tell me.
You haven't told us yet. Project management.
Yes, project management.
A third pivot.
So moved to Australia. Not much work in the hotel space as a design manager, etc. So someone was very persistent, Darren. As I said, I always remember every single person that actually came to my life saying, you need to work. I need a project manager. It's like, okay. Never done that before, but let's do it. Why not? Construction. Okay, why not? And then I realized, then I knew why not. Actually, it's a whole different world. So for so many different reasons. So moved into that space. So as a project manager on the builder side, very good company, very supportive. So it was an excellent way to actually get into that sector. And also I was telling myself, that's a good change. I like to know a little bit of everything, so that makes me a better communicator and a better peacekeeper. I like to keep the peace. I like everyone to be able to communicate. We can all disagree. We can all agree to disagree respectfully. So I was like, okay, architecture, tick. Design management, developer side, tick. Project management, construction. Okay, new challenge. So enter that chapter. I've learned a lot in terms of understanding the differences. I think I've realized how there was a massive gap between the construction side and the other side, consultants or builders.
Between the design team.
Yes, there was a disconnect. And the fact that I was on the other side and trying to keep the peace as a builder gave me a little bit of, I had a few tools that I could use to try to communicate that, to say, well, you know what, I come from that side. Let's talk about it. I want to understand. So It was very exhausting. It was a very tiring responsibility to have to educate everyone around, to say, by the way, we're talking about the same thing. We're just, formulating it differently.
What was that biggest kind of disjuncture or biggest lesson? What did you feel you kept having to educate the builders on?
That everybody cares. The designers care about the design and they want to help you. And you are the builder. We need you to, if you need help, just say, hey, I need help.
Yeah. Don't hide it.
You don't have to shoot, or you don't have to, because there's a lot of aggressivity. It's a tough industry. It's a tough industry for so many reasons. So there's a reason why they're so tough. There's a reason why. Long hours, early starts, being out there, in winter, how horrible it is to be on site when it's cold. There's no heaters. It's cold, it's wet, but you're there and you have to work for all these long hours and everybody's having a long day. They leave home early morning when it's still dark. So they're not like you, where you wake up, you have your coffee and you walk your dog. They don't have that life. So we need to be a little bit more understanding of that to begin with.
I always like to ask, what do you wish architects knew about the construction side more?
That's what they should know, honestly. It's go spend a day on site, not criticizing the builder. The site, I'm talking literally about the site managers. Don't go criticize them. Just ask them what they think. Let them show you. Let them ask you the questions, because from based on my experience and from what I've seen, it probably is not universal. Obviously, I could see that my observation was that the site managers, they are highly skilled. They're highly skilled. They are project managers themselves. So they have to manage a lot of people, a lot of emotions. They have to manage insane programs, timelines, deliveries coming late, landlords saying, well, you didn't book your dock on time, so you will not have access to your materials today, and blah, blah. So they have so many responsibilities that all they need is to have a designer that's a little bit more present. And I remember a very good site manager I worked with, Stuart. He was good at communicating this. He was saying, I need people to come here because I want to show them things and I want us to resolve it together on site. While on the other side, I get it. It's like, oh, why do I have to go on site? It's not on the drawings. It's on the schedule. But sometimes things don't work to plan, and this happens pretty much often, too often. And I think that's probably the disconnect, where the architects are just thinking probably, well, the consultant in general, the design is great, it works, it's functioning, it's within budget, just build it. But the builders actually have that reality check that can give to the wider team. And I feel that this is where the disconnect is, because they probably don't feel heard.
What a missed opportunity to collaborate.
Yeah, it is. It is when it's not managed. But to manage this, you need to understand it, and it comes down to the individual. And I think, which is probably what led me to then become a PM client side, open my business, because I realized I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I was you, I know exactly what you mean. I was you, I know exactly what you mean. You guys should be friends. You just don't realize how you're trying to say you want to achieve the same thing, but you don't realize that you both need to jump on the same bus. We're all in this together. And I'm not saying this the cheesy way, we're all in this together, it's teamwork. Yeah, this typical slogan you have in every company policy. And no, it's true. We all have one goal. Everybody wants to do a great job, be referred, be featured, the project to be featured for awards, etc. Everybody wants that. But that's the goal. But how you get there, it's that journey. And I think not enough people pay attention to the journey, because if you're not having fun doing this and reaching the goal, that's when you burn out. That's when you're not happy in your role. So the problem is not necessarily the industry or the goal. The problem is, how do we get there? How can we make it work better?
How much do you think procurement practice or poor procurement practice contributes to these issues in our industry?
Largely, I would say, but I would still always bring it back to people. I think that one of the things I strongly believe that, to me at least, EQ is way more important than IQ. The soft skills, way more important than the hard skills. But that's to me. You can teach something to anybody. But to teach someone to be respectful and to be understanding of another person position, whether that be a mood swing, whether that be just someone having a bad day, or if someone was performing a week ago, and then this week, less performing, don't go throw that person under the bus. That person is not a bad performer. No, that person probably has something going on. So instead of saying, well, you haven't sent that report on time, you haven't done this on time, how about you say, hey, is everything okay? Because I'm noticing a bit of a difference on the way you've been working. Can I do something? Everything okay at home? I'm here. You can talk to me. Like it's just the approach. So procurement, yes, is one thing, but it's finding the right people. People follow people. Let's not forget that. You can have a great business, but it's the people who make the business. So people will always follow people. So it's finding these right people. And sometimes people need only a little bit of love. They literally need a little bit of love. And often what I do is when I start a project, I get the team around the table. And I like to start from a humble position, because the flexing days are over, and I'm not into that whole flexing kind of spirit. I like to remind everyone around the table that we're only here to help each other. As a project manager, for example, often we're seen as it's the PM, as in watch out, it's the PM. But actually, the PM is the friend. It's the person who actually should support everybody. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. So what I like to do is to tell everyone, which is the truth, you have been hired on the job because you are the expert. I trust you. That's why I give you the contract. Now, I need to tell you that this is the goal. This is how much you can spend. This is how long it will take. And this is the brief. This is what we want. Now, collectively, how are we going to get it done? I need everybody's idea. It's not always up to the project manager, for example, to put together a program and say, well, this is the program, sign it here, I'll hit you with a stick the day you divert a little bit from it. No. Well, the way I like to do is to say, okay, well, milestone, can you tell me how you think what we should do to get there? And what about you, designer? What about you, engineer? And everybody brings their ideas together. That's how you hold everybody accountable. Everybody is part of the journey. Everybody feel that they're part of the leadership. They are leading the ship even. They're leading the project with the PM.
When it's such a journey and such a process and so many people are collaborating, and we often discuss on this program that architectural time is long. These buildings, these projects are 2, 3, 4 years plus in the making sometimes, depending on the scale. How do you define success?
When everybody's happy at the end, that nobody burned out, that not one single person in the team burnt out. That for me is success. For others, success is defect-free. We know that. That's by default. Defect-free, finishing on time, within budget, etc. That's the given. That's literally why we're hired to do the job.
Yeah, that's the bare minimum of the construction sector.
That's how I see it. Yeah, it's the minimum. This is the criteria of a project. But success is that everybody leaves at the end of the project wanting to go to a pub or to a restaurant to celebrate together and keep those friendships. And I actually have these relationships with a few consultants, which really humbled me and really gave me that vote of confidence that I might be doing something right. I remember there's an interior designer. I'm not going to reveal the name, but who I really pushed the team a little bit to meet timelines and deadlines, etc. It was a bit critical and challenging project. Which one is not? And I remember this person specifically telling me, "I'd love to work with you again soon." It's like, what do you mean?
I thought you hated me.
I was like, well, yeah, well, not that, but I was like, really? But I don't know why I adapted myself. I was like, really? Even though I gave you all those timelines, and he's like, well, you didn't force us. You actually told us, well, I need this documentation by that date, really, because there's a consequence, because this is why. I gave them the bigger picture.
Yeah.
They're part of leading the project with me. They're part of that leadership team. They're not just sitting there and I just give them, no vision and tell them, I need this by that date, and they don't understand why.
The context is so crucial.
It's so important because they feel respected, they feel valued, they feel extremely valued, and also there's communication. There is that sense of, I respect you. You are an expert. And if I make a mistake, I actually need you to tell me. And this is, as a PM, as project managers, we're not necessarily, we don't know. We don't know everything. We don't. We actually don't. And if somebody thinks that, then I don't know, you need to reassess the PMs you work with. We don't. We need them to tell us what to do and how to get there. And it's a brainstorming. We brainstorm literally from A to Z till we finish the job. And to give you an example, and I'm sure many will be able to relate to this, it's in the contract. You have that date program. You need to finish DD, for example, design development or concept design by X date.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen. You might have the project lead who is sick. These things do happen. Might have children who are sick. They might be moving houses.
Things, life happens.
By the way, hello, we're all humans because we tend to forget that. We tend to completely forget that everybody actually sleeps in a pyjama when you go to work. You think people are exactly like, no, they go to sleep. They have dinner, they brush their teeth, they go to the toilet, they go to the shower. We're all the same. So the key is to be able to, I'm losing my chain of thought.
Let me ask you what your lesson is to the next generation.
Oh, don't give up. Don't give up. It's just be there, just show up. Actually show up. Do you know it's a real thing. I believe in that. They tell you that if there's a problem and you show up, you resolve the problem by 80% already. Just show up. Just have the conversation. Have that uncomfortable conversation. Be uncomfortable. Just go sit there. Even if you don't want to talk, just sit. That already resolves the issue by 80%. Show up. So I want to say to the younger generations, whatever you study relating to the property industry, there are opportunities. You have plenty of opportunities and you will find what works best for you. You'll find your fit. You'll find the right place for you. You will find great relationships. Every single person you'll meet will actually be a lesson or a win. There's nothing else. Fear no one. Fear nothing. But focus on the soft skills. That's how I would really, the soft skills are paramount, important. And I remember now what I was going to say. That example. Often designers have, we have a program and we have deadlines, right? And the key is to be able to communicate with your designers or with the builder and say, instead of telling the designer, well, someone is sick in your team, you haven't given me the drawings, etc. The question is, I don't need the argument is, I don't need that 100% completed documentation. Essentially, all I need is that 20% documentation. Can you give me this by that date? And we can figure out the rest later. And I think being that flexible and open and transparent with your consultant, with the team, defines that success. This is what leads to that success. If someone tells me I was scared to call you, I was worried to call you, that would offend me. I think this kind of statement will make me lose sleep. So be humble. We're all humans. Things can happen. People get sick. They're just thinking of other things. They have other things going on in their life. Just be kind to one another. We're here to rise together, right? So we help each other.
I just wanted to ask about the name.
Yeah.
Where does Rise come from?
It's coming from there, from that. Just rise. That's it, from the ashes. Undust yourself. Just stand up. That's what I tell my kids. When you fall down, what do you do?
Dust yourself off.
Get
back up.
Get back up. Get right back up. Do this. Right, okay, let's do it. But not alone, though. I don't like... I'm not a competitive person, by the way. Some people see it as a weakness. I don't. It's a superpower. So I'm not competitive. I'm not here to compete. That's it. I'm just here to be happy, make everybody happy. And if everybody's happy around me, again, to me, this is success. That's what makes me happy. That's what fuels my fire. So Rise was all about holding hand. Imagine, just picture. We're all holding hands together and we walk together, like in La La Land. But it's doable. We can do that. I've been working for nearly 20 years now. And working this way works. It brings results. I wouldn't be preaching this here if it was not the case. It brings results. It's all about relationships. It's all about people. We will all die, right? So we all will go at some stage. What do you think I want to leave behind me? I really want people to have good stories to share, to say, oh, you know what? I was facing a difficult situation and Amal showed up, or we worked well together. When you tell me about projects, first thing, by the way, I think about it, when I look at my list of projects, sometimes I cannot remember even the colors but I remember the team. I remember the designers, I remember the designers, the engineers, building surveyors. I remember the team and the builders, and I remember the team only and how it made me feel.
The people and the memory. That's what lives on. I'm mindful of the time, so I've got to ask my last question.
Go for it.
And that's what gives you hope?
What gives me hope? That there's more good people than less good people. I think what gives me hope is that things are changing. Everybody seems to be embracing change, and the majority is, at least. And I think there are more and more people like me in the industry and across the globe who just want to make everything easier and simpler and surround themselves with friends while working. I think there are many of us now leading the path to that.
Here's to a better construction sector.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight, Amal.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me for another evening of Radio Architecture with Ilana Razbash. This live show was broadcast and recorded in the Radio Karim studio on Bunurong country. You can replay this show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in and supporting community radio. Take care.
You're tuned to Radio Karam, local community internet radio. This is Zvi Belling, aka Z6.